Every patch, the balance of the game changes in some way. Maybe a small champion nerf or buff, a new item change, or an adjustment. Some champions become more viable, some don't, and some become. And with a new patch being released every 2 weeks, the meta changes very quickly. With that in mind, if your main champion gets nerfed into the ground, you should probably switch champions most of the time because your main becomes less valuable in some way. Not only that, but if you want to climb higher on the ladder, you should have at least 2 or 3 picks for different situations. For example, your team is mostly AD and you need at least one AP champion to make the team composition better. The enemy picks a hard counter to your main, and now you can't pick it because you know the matchup is miserable. But if you have a second pick under your belt, you can make things a bit easier or a lot easier, depending on how hard the counter is. Enough talking. I'll try to help you learn any champion more easily in League of Legends.
Round 1. Fight!
Every champion in this game belongs to a class and defines the way you play the game. For example, tank. Tanks are tough guardians with relatively low damage output. They have a lot of health and resistances and usually bring strong crowd control like stuns, knockups, or roots. Their job is to absorb damage and keep the enemy's attention on them. They are usually immobile, although some have small gap closers depending on the champion. Examples of tanks are Skarner, Ornn, Malphite. Assassin. Assassins are dangerous risk takers who deal massive burst damage to a single target and usually have escape tools built into their kit. They are fragile and are often countered by resistances. Their main goal is to eliminate squishy targets as fast as possible. Examples of assassins are Katarina, Evelynn, Rengar. There are also other classes like mages, bruisers, marksmen, and many more. So why am I telling you this? Because once you understand what class your champion belongs to, it becomes much easier to understand how you're supposed to play them. You can't play assassins like mages, or enchanters like tanks, right? So my advice is to go to a wiki like the official League of Legends wiki, search for classes, and find the champion you want to play. Of course, this won't help you completely because the class won't reveal things like power spikes or which phase of the game your champion thrives in, but it will give you a basic understanding of the champion's playstyle.
Round 2. Fight!
Now that we know our champion's class, you need to understand what your abilities do. My advice is to go to the practice tool or a wiki and read carefully what your abilities actually do. I prefer reading them in the official League of Legends wiki, because there are many hidden passives that are not mentioned in the tool tips of the game. But, if you want faster understanding, just go to the practice tool and read them there. This way you can see what type of damage the ability does, whether there are special things built in the ability, like Nasusa's passive, how strong the scaling ratios are, and
No.
I'm not telling you to calculate how much damage you'll do if your ability has a 40% AP ratio, or if your ability has 90% or if your ability has 6% max damage with an enemy has 69 armor with a shield and the enemy has 90 armor. Just please don't do that. It's a waste of time. Just read the ability description on the wiki and move on.
Round 3.
Pause. I'm not telling you to do all of this at once. You can play games between the different sections. That way you can improve even faster because you're practicing each concept individually. Continue.
fight.
Oh. The builds. Just look for the most popular ones. And remember, if you play an assassin and you see tanky team, get Conqueror. If you play a mage and you see tanky team, get ability haste build or Liandry's. Okay, that's it. Next.
Round 4, fight.
Has reconnected.
Could've used some more self-control. Just like me! I'm nippy when I'm
A League of Legends game is divided into 3 main phases. Early game.
2, 3 E dash. Oh, we still lost that?
Mid game. Late game.
이게 그 상태다. 체력 4700, 방어력 329, 마저 201인 챔피언이 저지불가 실드, 벽 넘기는 거 있고요. 에어본 있고, 심지어 쿨타임은 1초밖에 안 되고, 마나는 15 들고,
Every champion has a completely different job depending on the phase of the game. For example, a champion like Lee Sin needs to dominate the early game to remain useful later. On the other hand, champions like Kayle or Vayne are much weaker early but become absolute monsters in the late game. Let's break these phases down quickly. Early game. The early game usually includes the landing phase and the first few objectives on the map. During this time, you're focused on things like farming minions, trading with your opponent, jungle pressure, early fights around dragons or river skirmishes. For some champions, this phase is where they need to build their lead, like Renekton. Mid-game. The mid-game usually begins when the first towers start falling and players start moving around the map more. This is where the game becomes less about lanes and more about map control, rotations, and team fights. Late game. In the late game, death timers become very long, objectives like Baron become extremely important, and a single mistake can ruin everything you worked for during the previous 20 minutes. This is the phase where team fighting, positioning, and scaling champions become extremely important. With that being said, go to a site like Mobalytics and check which phase of the game your champion is strongest in. That will help you understand how the champion actually wants to play the game.